Damir to make announcement and to call his panelists.
Thank you, Amir. Oh, this works. Hi. So, I know this is the last session of the day, and it's kind of become customary for me to moderate the last session of the day at the first day of Point. Today we are going to talk about, one of the buzzwords that's been going around for the last couple of years, which is data science. We have two really interesting people with really interesting things that they do. So I would like to invite Imer and Nino on the stage with me. And come on, give them a round of applause. I mean, you stay this long. You stay this long. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, Imer, you can take this microphone. Maybe we can sing a song or something, I don't know.
Is it working now? Oh. You guys are trying to read this right now. For those of you who don't understand the language, what this is, it's an article from 2014 covering the elections in Bosnia. What you might notice about it is it's kind of boring. It takes 250 words to explain the election results of one municipality. There are 143 municipalities in Bosnia. If you were to use this format to describe the results of the election in each municipality in Bosnia, the resulting document would be 35,000 words long, and it would take you around 3 hours to read it. After you've done reading it, the only thing you would have from it is a headache. So there has to be another different, better way to present the results. There is. We can simply plot the results onto a map. So now within maybe 10 seconds, you can see the results of the elections in the country. Now, this is just a screenshot of a map I made during the election. The actual thing is interactive, so if you hover, for example, your mouse over a municipality, you can see the actual results in a far more better and granular way than you would see within this here text article. However, this map by itself is also very misleading, because if you look at it, you think the guy in yellow probably won. He's present in a very large area of the country. But if you live here, you know that HDZ didn't actually win the election. So how can we make this map better? Well, instead of painting the entire municipality according to the color of where somebody won, we can instead paint a little spot for each 100 votes that candidate got. If we do that, we would get something similar to this. So here you can, sorry? No, very fat fingers. So here you can see that even though this guy won a large area, that area is basically empty. However, the candidates that won a lot of votes in urban areas, they are the ones who took the victory. Now, what I believe this kind of images show is that unlike the image you'd get from the picture on the left, where you think, oh, Bosnia is a divided society, on the right, you would get the impression that it really isn't. There's a lot of plurality that we miss by simply reporting some absolute results and by simply giving a winner and loser kind of results. Now, what else could we do? Let's say, for example, we're interested in invalid voting ballots. Let's say we want to see what percentage of votes were considered invalid during the election. So if we plot it, unfortunately, you can't really see it very well defined detail in this map, but this area is sticking out a lot. if this projector were better, you'd see tiny shades of red all over the map. But this area is very striking. You see, this municipality, 62% of the votes were invalid. And a similar trend is noticeable in the other municipalities. Why? Well, if you know how Bosnia is split politically, this part belongs to the federation. And if you live in the federation, you can vote for a Croat or a Bosniak candidate. You cannot vote for a Serb. But this area is, the population is majority Serbian, so what they did is they canceled their votes. And this is a story that you would not get from just looking at the table and looking at the data. But it's a story that's immediately evident if you plot this data onto a map. We can also do, for absolute numbers, a similar thing. We can see, for example, that the votes for the presidency were canceled, but when it comes to the parliament, not as much. So people, even though they didn't have a president to vote for, they had candidates on the lower levels that they were willing to give their votes to. This kind of map also makes it a lot easier to see where it's possible that some election fraud perhaps happened. It's not really too strong of an indicator. For example, Zvornik Doba in that region is pretty well known for shifty election tactics. But we don't only have to work with elections where we have tabular data. A good question we can ask is pollution. So Sarajevo has endemic issues with pollution. But if we were just to compare it by looking out our windows, it would be pretty tough to get some idea of how bad the pollution really is. So how could we get some data from this? Well, you need an instrument. Now, that instrument has some readings. We can convert those readings to an air quality index scale, and we can get a certain number. Let's say on a given day, it's 73. Okay, that doesn't really mean much, but on the AQI scale, 73 is moderate pollution, which is pretty nice. It's not too good, it's not too bad, but you're not going to get lung cancer if you drink coffee outside. We can also plot the previous 24 hours, and what we can do is give people some idea of, is it getting better, is it getting worse? We can figure out, hey, when everybody goes to bed, the air pollution is a lot lower, but when they start going to work, it suddenly jumps, and it's highest in the afternoon and early evening when people are home trying to get warm. Now that I produced this image, I can, for example, share it on Twitter, because I spend way too much time there. Or even better, if I know how to do that, I can simply build a bot that's going to do this every hour and make people panic. And that's exactly what I did. So why am I telling you all of this? Basically, these are two projects that I spent the last year working on. I mean, I didn't spend a full year on them, but they were things I produced in the last year. And the only reason why I was able to do them is because the data was publicly available. The maps helped improve the election coverage in Bosnia because until the last election, the only thing we had were these text articles. But due to a mistake by the Central Electoral Committee, they bought software that's actually good. Because it's good, it has an API. If it has an API, developers can use it to build new products based on that API. And I built that interactive map, which allowed people to track the election results in a much clearer way than just reading articles. And the US Embassy installed monitors that publish their air quality index readings every hour. Using that, I built a Twitter bot, and this winter it helped raise a panic in Sarajevo because people realized they're not actually breathing air, they're breathing dust. So what's the point of these stories? The point is that amateur data scientists are willing to help society get better. But for data scientists to do data science, society has to give them data. And that would be basically the point. Thank you.
Thank you, Emir. If you could please pass the microphone to Nina. Okay, now you have your time.
Good evening, everyone. I am Nino, and I came from Tbilisi to talk to you. When I was first invited to speak at this particular panel, I was asked to talk about what Forset, my organization, does. And then when the agenda was finally out, I read that I'm on the panel about making society better with data science, and I'm like, oops, what am I going to talk about? Because first of all, I do not directly work in data science, and secondly, it's kind of like hard to answer that question, how to make society better with data science. But then when I gave it a second thought, I realized that actually what we do at Forset kind of answers this question, our philosophy about how we can use data science and data scientist resources in order to make our society better. So let me tell you about Forset. We are a relatively new organization. We just celebrated our second birthday a week ago, which was on Friday, so we had no excuse for mid-week drinking, unfortunately. We are a socially driven creative enterprise specializing in data communications using design and technology. We work in different directions. We do storytelling, advocacy campaigns, civic tools, and community building activities. So let me tell you how we got to where we are right now. Even though it has been 2 years that we exist under this organization's name, our team used to work around data for around 6 or 7 years. I joined our previous organization, Jumpstart Georgia, in 2012, and since then we have created quite a lot of data projects, such as 500 infographics, 100 animations, 20 data portals and civic tools, and so on and so on. And these are like few tools that I have personally worked on. Some kind of election data portal, digitalizing the election results with the help of volunteers, staying up the nights of elections, and making sure that every vote would add up to the final counts and things like that. The budget stories, the budget, Georgian state budget portal, where we had to negotiate with the state agencies, the Ministry of Finance, to give us data in machine-readable formats, but we would still get files in PDFs, then we would convert these PDFs into spreadsheets, we would try to clean them up, match them, and so on, create a portal. Similar portal about political party finances, blah, blah, blah. So all these tools, we believed around 5 or 6 ago, that 6 years ago, that would help us make the society better. That would that they would help media and civil society to make sure that our government was transparent and accountable, and so on. So we were working quite long hours. We were putting all our energy in this. We were in our kind of like small bubble, complaining with our peer watchdog civil society representatives about how hard it was to work with the data, and so on and so on. However, the panel about fucked up civic tech tools resonated a lot with me, because it took me a few years to realize that all these long hours, all these kind of generous funding from the donors, in the end, I think those are fucked up, because if we combine the total number of users of all these platforms, it would not exceed a few hundred people, unfortunately. Because while we were creating these tools and we were making data more accessible and making things transparent, there was no one around us who would actually be willing to use this data. So that's why when 2 years ago we had the chance to kind of rethink our strategy and continue working under a new organization under the name of Forset, we decided to open up, to leave our bubble and work not only in data journalism and in civic tech fields, but become more community oriented. And we started combining our work in 4 directions. The first direction that we work in is data storytelling. We take complex data and turn them into visual materials that can be digested by average users, by ordinary people, decision makers as well, and even influencers, because we care that everyone should have access to evidence-based reporting, evidence-based stories, rather than some feelings, guts, or gossips. Because we people in Georgia are quite hot-blooded. We follow our heart, our emotions, and we often forget to kind of look into the numbers and facts and make data-driven decisions. The second direction that we work on is educational programs, because while we have been working with data for 6 or 7 years, we have gathered some expertise, and now it's time to share it with fellow activists who work in accountability in media, not only in Georgia, but people who come from Eastern Europe and Central Asia. So we run quite long period fellowships, workshops, trainings, and so on. The third direction is civic tech. However, we have learned our lessons, and instead of making the tools perfect, shiny, and then releasing it to the public when we have no money in the project left for promotion or for follow-up activities, we try to take it more agile, try to make it like less shiny at the first stage, but test it on the way and get feedback, then improve it, and actually like also invest a lot in the promotional activities and follow-up projects. And the last direction is community building. Events like Point is very pointful, let's say so, because we believe that bringing people together from different sectors, from different countries, people who share the challenges but might not necessarily share the workplaces or share the sectors, they have a lot in common, and they need to talk, and they can come up with solutions more effectively if they do so. So one of the biggest events that we run is Data Fest Tbilisi. This is the international data conference, mostly like targeting Eastern Europe and Central Asia, happening in Tbilisi every November. Besides this type of events, we run hackathons, workshops, meetups, kind of the gatherings where we would invite people from different sectors. And this is kind of important that I want to emphasize, that what we have learned from our 6 or 7 years of experience is that we need to open up towards different sectors, including government, including private sector. And by education, I am journalist, and it was mentally very challenging for me to go to my first negotiations with the bank, because I thought that I was kind of betraying my profession, or I was betraying some kind of morals. But it's not like that, because if they are willing to help your activities, if they are willing to invest in data science or improving data skills in the country, it will be beneficial for the entire industry in the end. So yes, we should open up to these opportunities. We do even work with the government, and that was like another big step for me mentally and psychologically. But yes, that's also important, because in my opinion, unless your government is super corrupt and you do not want to like shake hands with them. So these are a few project examples that I wanted to show to you. We launched data stories portal, which is called Eurasian Data Stories Portal, and it combines stories from the fellows or the participants of our events coming from Eastern Europe and Central Asia. And the plan for us next is to invite more contributors to the portal, help them, mentor them, even remotely through our webinars or online mentorship programs, in order to boost their motivation to continue doing data stories, because we believe that if data is stuck in the data portals or in some tools, it will not have any impact. We need people who have good writing skills or communication skills to take this data and turn them into stories that will impact society and make it better in the long run. And then the last project that I want to show you is one of our hackathons winning project. So last year we ran this data with hackathon, and the topic was 100 years of independence of Georgia, which is not really true, because for 70 years we were under the Soviet occupancy. But anyway, one of the challenges at our hackathon was to take the data about Georgian army army who died or got disappeared during the Second World War and turned it into some visualization. And the winning team created this very amazing tool. First of all, they took data from Russian sources. They automatically translated it into Georgian, cleaned, used some like really good techniques to get the perfect results, and then visualize this data on this portal. And I wanted to bring this example because this tool, which for us kind of cost around 1,000 euro because it was the price for the winning team, got more viewers in 6 months than all the tools that I showed you before in a few years. And the accumulative budget of those tools are like, I guess, more than 100,000 USD. So I believe that the simple tools like this, involving community members, opening up to other sectors, opening up to government, to private sector, to startups, to just like data enthusiasts and individuals who are interested in taking some technical challenges for them, which might be great solutions for civil society and media, and turn them into tech solutions which can, in the end, make the society better. So that's my kind of philosophy about how we can use data science to make the society better. I hope I will have more concrete success stories to share with you in a year or two, but until then, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nino. I have a couple of questions before we give word to the audience. I mean, you both work with data, and you both come from the countries that are not actually renowned for its openness when it comes to data. I mean, how hard is actually to gather the data? Do you have, you know, like, do you have to go through official channels, or do you actually prefer to you know, like, do it by yourself? I don't know, like scrape websites and stuff. I mean, Nino can, since she has the microphone, she can answer first, and then Imre.
So I can bring that example of budget data. It was very funny, but we were working on that portal around 3 years ago. We were getting data in PDFs, and there is no way that that data is not accessible in machine-readable formats. We went to the meeting with the deputy minister, and the first reaction was that, like, why are you creating this portal? Because we are going to create that in a few months. A few years have passed, and they have not created anything. So, you know, like, very often it's some kind of mental obstacle that the officials have in order to open up their data, and also the lack of technical knowledge, because they think, oh, like, if we do not give you data in PDF, then you might change some data and manipulate with it, which is like kind of stupid. So that's like one thing. And why I was talking about including government as well in your activities. Becoming friends with them and actually like sharing some skills and technical knowledge with them, sitting at the, I don't know, like having beer with them after some meetup or workshop or conference, it helps them to overcome those psychological barriers, and then become more open in opening up the data, because, you know, like, data science is becoming buzzword not only for us but also for the governments. They want to be part of these technological changes and improvements, and they are, I think, like in some cases really willing to share the data, but the problem is that they do not really have it, because the way that most of the state agencies work in Georgia is unfortunately still not very tech savvy. So the way they record and keep data is not useful right now, but we have new opportunities. We can work with them, and we can like start recording the data, which will be useful for the entire community in a few years.
Yeah, I pretty much had a similar situation to what you had. Luckily, the projects I described here were pretty easy to do because, as I said, the election committee accidentally has an API. We did not know about that, so they bought new software in 2016, and it came with an API. And I didn't know it existed, but on the day of the day after the election, this guy Saqib from Twitter, he sent me a link to their API, And literally within 90 minutes, I started publishing these maps. While for the air quality, I mean, the US Embassy does a really good job of publishing that data. However, I initially started working with electoral data like half a year before the election. I wanted to analyze, like, are there any parts of Bosnia where, like, people are more loyal to one political party? I got data that was obtained from official channels. It wasn't in a PDF. It was in Excel spreadsheets. Half of it was in Latin script, half of it was in Cyrillic script, and half of it was wrong. For example, there were three columns. There were three columns with Emir Sudagic's election results. Like, yeah, I mean, I was very concerned. Why did he win so many votes in Herzegovina? It was really weird for me. So even the data you'd get from official channels was wrong. So, and even if you'd get the data, it was in such a format that it literally took me half a year to prepare everything, to do some serious work with it. So, I mean, for example, I'm liking the new things the government here in Sarajevo is doing, like publishing this budget data and stuff like that, because all of those websites have APIs. So if we somehow manage to convince the governments to actually release data in a usable format, not in PDFs, that would be a huge step up, in my opinion.
I want to add that government is only one source of data, because like we are representing probably like civil society organizations, and we also own some very, very important data sets. But I'm not sure if we always make it open and accessible for everyone. We have very big experience of working with, for example, UN agencies, and they have been doing lots of studies and researches and surveys in the country for many, many years. And even the data from those publicly available PDF studies, the like raw data is not available and is not even findable in the computers or in archives of those organizations, because there is like very low culture of data maintenance. And I think if we work, we need to like not only push the government, but also donor organizations to then like push towards their beneficiaries or these like data creators to make whatever whatever data they create, make them accessible and available and kind of affordable for like data scientists or activists to access and work with that.
Nothing to add, really. Completely agree.
I don't know, like you usually have something to say. There's another thing that I want to ask, and I think that it I mean it concerns your both of your presentations also. I don't know, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, the hit thing in the NGO community were websites like Fix My Street or something, and there was this kind of saying, if you build it, they will come, meaning the users. But some guys from Iceland that like also work something like that. They had a really good platform, but they kind of inversed that saying, like, if you build it, will they come? So what are your experiences in terms of when you build? I mean, you have had, I don't know, like Nino, your organization has had many projects, like many kind of websites that you built, like that opened up the data. You've done many infographics. You have done, I don't know, like you've done actually countless things in terms of opening up data and presenting to the public. Like what are your kind of lessons learned in terms of, like, what do people actually respond the best to, and like, what did you learn from all those experiences? And for Imer, also, like, what were the reactions to everything that you did, like, in the past year in terms of Bosnia and Herzegovina? Because, like, data-driven journalism, I'll say journalism, like, so don't get offended. Like, it's not really a big thing in Bosnia, like, and, like, what do you think, whether what you are doing now, what you were doing, like, what do you think, will it have an impact in the future? Like, for example, like, the next election is like really close. It's, like, next year, what do you think, whether will there be a different coverage from the mainstream media based on what you did in 2018?
So what I know for sure is that audiences do not respond to complex products because all these like 3 tools that I presented on this slide, they were super complex because we tried to show everything in those data portals because we were like, oh my God, it's so interesting like to see the budget data according to sub program and comparison like through months, not only like year, but like even like days or quarters or whatever. Like for us, everything was interesting because we did not, like we were in the topic. So for us, every single data point was interesting, and we did not want to omit those out from our visualization. But that's not true for the bigger audience. Like they cannot digest, they cannot comprehend this complex data. That's why I call these projects fuck-ups, because we spent like lots of days, months creating those portals, but they did not reach the audiences because audiences cannot digest the complex portals. Unlike those super complicated portals, the projects that are coming out from our hackathons, which are created in 48 hours or maybe like plus 1 or 2 months of incubation period, they resonate with the public very easily. Like they become viral. They have like super simple designs, very simple technological solutions as well, which can be done in a few days or few months. But because of this like simplicity, audiences pick up very well those tools. And the third point would be that when we convert these data portals into some kind of digestible stories, this is something that also resonates to the audiences. Some kind of like simple factographs or very, very simple infographics, animations, gifographics, materials like this are easily digestible, and that's what's gonna reach to the bigger audiences. What would be your experience?
So before becoming a guy who publishes funny stuff on Twitter, I'm currently working in research, and previously I worked at the university, and I always had this issue that, we do some science, we'd publish a paper and nobody would read it. The only people interested in it would be the other experts in the field. What I've found during the last year is that your target audience should never be the experts. It should be normal people who are just kind of interested in your topic. It doesn't have to be extremely complex as long as it's informative. For example, I might write something on a blog and 500 people are going to read it. But if I take that blog, if I cut it into 280 character tweets, make a thread out of it, I know thousands of people are going to read it. So yeah, I would completely agree that simplicity is very important, as well as trying to get that viral effect. And for the thing you mentioned, the 2018 election coverage and stuff like that, if nobody prepares a map for 2020 for the elections, I am going to. I mean, I really don't care what journalists are going to do. I know what I'm going to do, so don't follow the sick website, follow me. Yeah.
Actually, that was a hashtag that like that almost trended on Bosnian Twitter. Like "Sam protiv CIKA," which means alone against Central Election Committee. So I think that well, first of all, I talked enough. So does anybody from the audience have any questions to our panelists? Anybody? Okay, there's somebody there.
Thanks for the great presentations. My question is actually directed to both of you, and it concerns local open data. So I know while sometimes for researchers it's easier to get a bigger picture and look at national level data, it's sometimes hard to get that in an open data format. It's sometimes hard to get that even in a PDF. What are your opinions on how people react to local data? Because some logic would be that actually local is where the people live, not national. And you were talking about how a more granular approach in presenting election data is better to let's say, engage the audience. So what have your experiences been with analyzing local level data? That's the question.
Depends on the size of the locality. For example, recently there were elections somewhere in Krajina, I think, and there was this geography student doing a similar analysis to what I did, but because it's a very small municipality that doesn't have a lot of people on the social media platform he was sharing it on, it really didn't have much of an impact. For example, actually I also sent the same analysis that he did to several journalists, but nobody picked it up because it was a very small area of the country. But when it comes to, for example, local data from larger localities such as Canton of Sarajevo, you can get a pretty nice and large impact, but I mean, I currently just have some projects that are ongoing that people have shown a lot of interest for, like doing some more granular analysis of, like, for example, which neighborhoods vote for which political party. But until I finish actually drawing the map for that project, this flag is falling, I really cannot say.
So I was talking about the lack of this critical mass who would use the tools that we have created even on the national level. So the situation is even like harder when it comes to like local. Because like Georgia is a small country and most of the things are happening in the capital, so there is not like many local activists left who would be interested in local regional data. However, we see that as a challenge and something that we want to tackle with, and we right now from this year we are trying to take our activities more local and start outside capital city level hackathons and see whether we can find this like group of people who would be interested in picking up some of the data projects and working on local level. So I hope there will be activities like this, but so far not really.
Do we have any more questions from the audience? Okay. Is Darko there?
And it's not a question; it's more of a comment. From like Imer helped us with the research that you saw a presentation of this morning on this information, and like, you know, I mean, working on it, like, you know, understanding the results of your work was pretty easy, like, you know, but whenever we try to kind of explain how we got to them, to anybody else other than like a very few of us that were part of it, it gets really hard. Like, you know, do you have any kind of, like, you know, recipes on how to approach that, like, and how to kind of, like, you know, make it more understandable? I mean, sometimes it gets really tough and, like, you know, algorithmic in a way, like, you know, and then it's hard to get it to I mean, we had a presentation on Monday. Okay, this crowd here gets it more, but, like, you know, we had a presentation for foreign embassies in Bosnia, like, you know, I don't know how to do it. Do you have any recipe on doing that, like, you know?
I think when we were doing that analysis, I should have really written down like a simplification for it or some sort of flowchart. I'm currently regretting not doing that. I mean, it's pretty unfortunate since data science by itself, you have a lot of very, very different tools, a lot of different things you can do, and it really depends on what you choose to do. So, I mean, basically, you need somebody who understands it really, really well to do the explaining. So, I don't know. Maybe you should have put me on that morning panel as well. I would have missed it, but yeah. That's, I mean, in the end, you'd probably have to, like, drag the expert along with you to help with the explaining. I mean, I understand really the problematics because my primary field of study is genetics. So, I mean, I also had to piss blood to get myself to a level where I understand all of this. So I fully understand your issue, and it's not an easy one to solve.
So I would suggest the diversity in the team who works on communicating the results and the processes, because what we do, for example, at Forset is that we combine the geeks, nerds, with communication specialists and the designers, and usually our products are the work, like this joint work of all these like different brains, and usually that makes it much easier as a final product. So maybe like try that next time. That might work, or you can even hire us and we can try to do that on your behalf. We will give you good prices.
Any more questions? Do I? Yes. Oh, okay. Salim.
I mean, thank you for your presentation and thank you for your great work that you're doing. So actually, I think part of what you're doing is like simplifying data, simplifying information to make it more accessible to people. And how you did that through technology, through data collection science, but also, I mean, does your organization like work as much as on communication and as much how you deliver those information to the right people? I mean, you did great job, for example, analyzing the data and simplifying it, but it's not enough. It's not. I mean, the message. If the message should be strong, I think you should also be able to deliver it to the right people. Because I mean, who knows? As a normal citizen, I wouldn't look for it. I wouldn't visit your website. But are you working on advertising it, publicizing it? I mean, do you have a communication strategy for you to make this make these studies or make this data collection analysis, I mean, accessible to more people? Because I think, in my opinion, your job is great, but it would be even better if you make sure or work more, or I mean, you put as much effort as in analyzing the data as in making it reachable to others. I'm not suggesting going door to door, but I don't know. There are like you should. I mean, maybe you have a communication strategy that would help you deliver your the data to the right people. So yeah, did you work on that? This is my question.
So actually, the things that I just showed you, none of them are part of my job. Like, these were literally just hobby projects I did because I was bored during 2 separate weekends. So, I mean, my real job is I make maps of microbial abundance in the oceans. Nobody uses that except like 300 scientists, and I know at least 120 of them personally. So, I mean, this was just something I did for fun because I was really frustrated with the election coverage in Bosnia. So my entire strategy is just write a lot of very crude jokes on Twitter to get followers and then hit them with some science. It works for right now.
So the gap that you have identified really exists there, and the main specialization of my organization is exactly data communication. So we work with many organizations who have some findings, data that they want to communicate to the right audiences, and we help them transform those into some visual, easily digestible materials. So what I can say is that if 5 or 6 years ago we had to proactively approach those organizations and tell them, hey, you are doing great work, but you do not reach audiences effectively, like maybe you come and work with us, blah, blah, blah. Now they are approaching us proactively. So this type of gap is being identified more and more, and I'm happy about that, and I hope that one day they will also, like these organizations, develop internal capacity to create these effective visual communication campaigns internally and not outsource to very few organizations like us.
Okay. Any more questions? Apparently not. I have one more question for both of you, and it's actually derived from one of the questions that was asked before. When we are talking about like data and the analysis that we do, Do you think that is it a better strategy to focus on maybe some local level? Could you have, you know, like kind of more impact if you do, I don't know, like traffic analysis in one city, you know, like as opposed to you know, like doing an analysis of data on a larger scale, like, I don't know, for example, the election or whatever you do, you know, like what do you think that kind of makes more kind of strategic sense?
So I guess like it really depends what is the aim. If the aim is to make sure that elections were fair, then obviously, definitely we need to focus on elections data. But in our case, sometimes more important is to create this community of data enthusiasts and data lovers. And for them, traffic data is more, sometimes more...
You know, like something like traffic data, you know?
Yes,
like,
traffic or environment, something that like really affects their lives. It might be more kind of... like it might resonate better to them, and it might help us attract them more easily. So it really depends. But what we try to do is to like combine those different topics. We do not want to like become super like watchdog, government, be afraid of us type of organization. But we do not also want to be like just like very easy kind of topic oriented organization. So by this combination, I think we might reach a bigger impact than to be like only towards only one topic or the other. That's like our strategy for now, but we will see how it might change.
I think a good strategy would be just focus on the issues. Go where there's interest. I mean, if people on the local level are interested in traffic, go for the traffic. Simple as that. I mean, it doesn't really matter higher level, lower level, just go where people want you to go. If you can feel that pulse, that's it.
So just play it by ear then. I mean, that's okay. So like, oh, look, like we're perfectly on time. Thank you everyone for attending. I know it's hard, you know, like to attend the last session of the day. Can we please get a round of applause for these two fantastic people?